Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsey. Today I'm excited to share with you my first alternative card using the April 2023 paper pumpkin kit called All the Little Things. This beautiful kit creates 9 handmade cards. There are 3 in 3 different designs. These are the intended cards you can make with the kit. If you would like to watch me unbox this kit and create these cards, you can click on the playlist and I'll link it in the top right corner. Each month I take the contents from the paper pumpkin kits and make alternative projects. Today I am sharing how you can create 4 simple cards from one of the cards from the kit. All you need are 4 extra card bases in your choice of coordinating colors. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel using that link in the bottom right corner so that you can get updates when I post a new video. I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you're interested in getting your own paper pumpkin kit subscription, please use the link in the description below to subscribe. So this is the card we're going to use the supplies from. So we're going to use these beautiful stained glass peonies. I love this little extra shine that is printed on them. It's like an iridescent foil. We're also going to use the white card base and an envelope. So we're going to start cutting these down. Let's begin with the white card base. So this is white on both sides. There's no design. So I'm going to first cut this in half along the score line at 4 1/4 inches. And then we're going to cut each section in half again at 2 3/4 inches. And that's going to give us 4 pieces that are exactly the same size. So that cut is 2 3/4 inches. So the final dimension is 2 3/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And we're going to use those 4 pieces on our card bases. Next, we're going to take one envelope. We're going to first cut off this flap here. And you can just cut it right along the score line, which sits just 1/16 larger than 4 1/2. Or 4 1/2 would be fine as well. Doesn't really matter, just remove the envelope flap. We are going to use this envelope flap for this card here. You can see that this pattern is at an angle, and I will show you how to add that to your white piece that we just cut. So that's for that card. Then for the other 3 cards, we are going to be using this solid piece here, not the angled pieces on the back. So to get that piece, we're going to just trim off the 3 sides. So the sides and the bottom. You're just going to cut a very small piece off, and that just removes the fold, keeping those papers together. So now you've separated those pieces. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is cut this piece in 3 sections, and we're going to use those sections on our cards. So let's start with this first one. This is the larger piece. It's on my Calypso Coral card base, but you could use it on any card base color that you have. It is going to be a 1/4 inch smaller than our white piece. So that means it will be 2 1/2 inches by 4 inches. So let's begin by cutting 2 1/2 inches first, and then rotating and cutting down to 4 inches. Next, we're going to cut our next largest piece, which will be this one that I'm using on shaded spruce cardstock. It is 2 inches by 4 1/2 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide it down, cut 2 inches, and then this length here is 4 1/2 inches, I'm pretty sure. Yep, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that and place that with my shaded spruce card. And then the last piece I have should be about 1 1/4 inches. It doesn't have to be exactly that size, so if yours is a little bigger or a little smaller, that's fine. But I am going to trim it down to 4 1/4 inches. so it fits the width of my white piece that we cut. And that is for my Granny Apple Green. And we're also going to add to it a little bit of the flap as well. So it has two of those patterns for this card. So now that we have cut all of our pieces for our cards, let's go ahead and do the next thing that we should prep. And that is to separate this larger grouping of peonies. So the original card uses both of these beautiful die cuts. So you can see here how they're layered. This individual peony is layered on top of the larger peony in the back. And even though it creates a really gorgeous card here, I felt like we could really maximize the product by separating all of these flowers. So we don't need to do anything to this single flower here. So that one's all ready and to put on our card. I've used it on my shaded spruce card here. So I'll just go ahead and place that with that one. For this card, I'm going to separate each of these flowers. So let me show you how I've done that. So it's going to give us a large, a medium, and a small flower. So for the large flower, I did remove all of the white around them. And the reason for that is so that it feels very uniformed all the way around, since we're going to be cutting around the black line to separate the flowers. So for this large one, I just followed the petal line here until I get to this leaf, and then I follow this leaf. I did remove these two leaves here and kept this leaf. And the reason I did that was just because I kind of followed the exact same shape as this single flower. So you can kind of see which leaves are being kept. And then came around and then trimmed off all the white. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with you now. Okay, so you can see how I've separated that. I'm going to go ahead and remove all the white off camera. But let's go ahead and do the next two so you can see how I've separated those. So for this medium-sized peony, I kept 4 of the leaves, mainly because this leaf here has been kind of chopped off. So I'm going to keep this one on the right, and then follow the petal line. So there you can see how I cut that. You start here on the right side with that leaf, follow along that line, then cut along the petals, and then end with the leaf on the left. So for this one, we actually are using this little leaf here is an extra leaf that I've tucked underneath. So when you look at it, I did keep this leaf here and it's tucked underneath the designer paper. So I'm going to go ahead and cut along this leaf and then along the base of the flower until I come to this shiny piece here. Okay. So it ends up with 3 leaves and then just the base of the flower. I did mention that we tuck in an extra leaf, and it's just this one right here. It's got a nice finished look to it. So you can just go ahead, trim off that extra. This becomes trash. And then of course you're going to trim off the white around it. I'll go ahead and do that really quick. Okay, so go ahead and take a minute. You can pause the video and you're going to remove all of the white around your flowers. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that, and you can see how that creates a nice uniform look to the flowers. So the next step is to take a look and see if there's any areas that maybe have a little bit of white showing, or you've cut off the black. And that's just along the outside edge. And what you're going to do is take your basic black Stampin' Right marker, and with the wide tip or the brush tip, you're just going to lightly along the edge of the tip. Do you see how I'm just kind of laying the tip on my cardstock? You're just going to add that black line back onto the die cut. And you can go around the whole thing if you want, or you can just go around the areas that it's showing or missing. And this just creates that uniform look again. It makes it look like cutting it out was intentional and the original idea. Just want to be careful that you don't do this too quickly, because sometimes you can get too much ink on that edge. And if that does happen, you can just cover that up with an embellishment. It happened to me on one of my cards, and that's what I did. So I'm just going to go all the way around the whole thing. Try to get in between and make sure that that looks nice and finished all the way around. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to this one. This one has a lot of areas that have the light pink, and so I'm going to just make sure I get a nice line along those edges. It's a little tricky when you try to get in between those sections. I think that one looks good. This one, just going to go around the pink one a little bit. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and begin with this one. This one is probably the one that's the most tricky. We're going to use one of our white pieces that we cut. Remember, this is 2 3/4 inches by 4 1/4. And we're also going to use the angled flap from the envelope. And what I'm going to do is place the long side, the bottom corner, down in the bottom right corner. And then the rest, the opposite angle. So the angle that's now at the top is going to be flat with the top of my flap, okay? And then you just kind of slide it down, so you can slide it left or right until we cover that bottom corner with the pattern paper. So we're just going to keep sliding until we get right about there. So you're going to have this strip here on the right that's not being covered, and we're going to use that for card number 2. So make sure you don't go too far over, because you do want to save that strip. So just until that bottom corner, they meet, like that. Okay, so you can get an idea of where you're going to place your adhesive. What I like to do is place the adhesive on my white paper. So I'm going to go along that top edge and then just come down to that bottom corner. I'll give you a quick close-up of how I added the adhesive. So again, the long edge is on the left, corner is at the top right, and then we're placing it so this top edge is at the top, and then the bottom should match up with this bottom over here. I think I might have moved it. It gets a little tricky when you're trying to adhere it together. So just be patient. This is one of the reasons I'm using liquid adhesive, because I can move things around before it dries. Okay. So something like that. Once it's in place, you can press firmly or use a bone folder to smooth out that glue. Okay. If there's any sections where you want maybe a little more adhesive, you can also add that. Put just a little bit more right along that edge. Okay. All right. So next step is to trim this down. So you can use just a pair of paper snips, or you can pull out your paper trimmer and just trim it down to fit. So remember, this edge here is 2 3/4. And again, you'll have this little strip, and we want to keep this for card number 2. So go ahead and put that off. It goes with the Granny Apple Green card. Let's go ahead and do the stamping for that. So I am going to use the shaded Spruce ink spot that came in the kit, and I'm stamping the branch and then Celebrate Today. And the branch, they go in opposite directions. One is in the bottom white triangle, and then one is opposite of that on the pattern paper. I wanted the branches to have a lighter color, and so I'm going to stamp off first and then stamp on. So go ahead and ink that up, stamp off, and then stamp on. You want to place it right in the bottom corner so that the branch is filling up that space. And then just opposite of it, maybe a little bit higher, just like that. And you can get an idea when you place your flower on top, you know, kind of where those things will be. Then our greeting is going to go right above that branch. And I'm using the Celebrate Today. And I want that to be full strength because I want that to be nice and dark. And you just want to make sure that it's nice and straight onto your card. If there's a little bit of overlapping, that's okay, because this one's dark and that one's light. So the greeting will show through. So the next step is to add a little bit of twine. So this is the Calypso Coral twine that came in the kit, and I have about 18 inches. I'm going to begin by adding a little bit of adhesive, and you can do that with your glue dots, or if you have any Stampin' Seal, you can use that as well. I'm going to just put it right where I know I'm going to hide that connection point with my flower. So it's just right there between the two branches. I'm going to do a double bow. So I'm going to take the two ends, find the center, and place that right in the center. And I want my bows to kind of be going the direction of this angle of paper. So go up, wrap around, then go down, wrap around. You may or may not be able to have a little bit of the twine showing. So it just depends on how big you want your loops to be. Okay, so you'll get something that looks like this. And then we're going to make sure nothing moves on us by adding some dimensionals. And you do get dimensionals in the kit. I'm just going to place a couple there. You can add more if you want. And then your flower goes right on top. So it's going to look something like this. And then we'll stamp the card base and place this on top all together, since they all have a similar background with the dotted image from the kit. So there's card number 1. Let's go to card number 2, which is our Granny Apple Green card base. We're going to be using the smaller flower for this. So let's go ahead and attach our little leaf so we don't misplace that. I'm going to use one of the glue dots from the kit. Just place that down where the leaf has kind of been cut near the base. Then you can remove it, that paper backing, and I'm going to place this on the opposite side. So I have 3 leaves here, and then this one just kind of gets tucked in on the opposite side like that. And that just kind of balances out that color and shape. So let's grab one more of those basic white pieces that we cut from the card base, and I'm going to layer this strip. So this is the polka dot strip that came from the flap. I'm just going to add. Let's first trim it down so that it fits. So I'm going to take my paper trimmer and trim it to 4 1/4, which is the length of my basic white piece. And I noticed that it's not going to go, it's not totally straight all the way down. There's a little bit of an angle here. So that's the angle that I'm going to hide. So I'm going to place a little adhesive right along this edge. Just a thin strip of liquid glue. Then use my grid paper and place my other piece right along that. And you can go, I'm going about 3/8 of an inch about is showing of that polka dot paper. Okay. So you'll get something like this, just an extra little touch of pattern. This is next going to get added to my basic white piece. And you can use any adhesive. So if you have glue dots from your kit that you want to use, you can use those. And that just goes near the top. And then we're going to stamp our greeting. I'm going to use the I am grateful for all the little things you do. If you want to use a different one, you can definitely do that. Any of them will fit in this white area here. I'm going to use the shaded spruce, ink spot, and stamp that as close as I can to the left side, which will give me plenty of space for my flower on the right. Then let's go ahead and add our flower. I did add a dimensional underneath. And then this little piece right here, I'm going to tuck under the top layer. And we just need a little bit of adhesive, a little bit of paper to show. Let's see. Just like that. You don't need a lot, just a little bit to tuck. Looks like I got a lot of adhesive right there. There we go. Just kind of lifting that up a little bit. It needs to be close to the edge so that you have room for your flower. Okay, so something like that. Then I am going to take some twine. This is again the Calypso Coral twine, and I want to do a double wrap, but after using all the twine, I only had 18 inches left, and so I'm going to show you a little trick so that you can get a double wrap look without wasting twine on the back. So I like to tie bows with at least 8 inches of twine, and so that means about 4 inches on each side. So I'm going to take the ends of my twine and place them on my grid paper and measure about 4 inches from those ends. And then maybe just slide down just a little bit, and I'm just going to tie a knot. So a loop knot here. I don't really know what they're called, but you just make a loop with both of the pieces and then hold that loop as you pull it tight. And it should be about 4 inches, yep, from the ends. That's what we're kind of looking for. And that's going to give me a nice small bow. From there, I'm going to take the extra and I'm going to place the knot. Sometimes this is a little easier to do with a glue dot. So let's place a glue dot where we want our bow to be, which is right there between the flower and the leaf. So remove the paper and then place the knot. So see how I have my circle and my ends are loose? I'm going to place the knot right on that glue dot, and that's going to hold it in place. And then I'm going to take the leftover, and you might have a little bit more or a little bit less, just depending on how much twine you cut. For this one, I cut 18 inches, and I think I had just a little, like an inch left or something at the end of my roll. So this one might be a little bit bigger. And then you bring, do you see how I'm evening out the twine? And you just bring it back down, connect it with the rest of that glue dot. And then on the back, you can add some adhesive to hold this in place. And you can use a glue dot. You can use, let's place a glue dot. So I'm going to place a glue dot right here. And then I can wrap that to the back, just like that. Okay, and depending on how short that is, we'll have how much twine will show on the back. And then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. And you want to wrap it right between the two different patterns. Okay, so those two pieces will be held in place just like that. And then when we add it, I'm going to add dimensionals over that just to continue to hold that in place. And then take that little twine that you have left over, and you're going to tie a small little bow right here. Super cute. And it gives you that double wrapped look, but it saves you a whole bunch of twine. All right, so now let's go ahead and move to card number 3. I'm going to be using the medium peony here. And this one's quite simple. This one is the smaller piece. So it's going to give you a nice white border all the way around. And I wanted to just stamp this really fun dot pattern. And I want it to be lighter. So just like we did with the branch, we're going to stamp off and then stamp on. And I want just it to be along the outside edges. Maybe one more over here on this side. Okay, So just have fun with it. Keep it to kind of the bottom half area, maybe 2/3. And then we're going to stamp our greeting. For this one, I wanted to do with deepest sympathy. Of course, you can pick whichever greeting you want to use, and I'm doing full strength ink there and just stamped it near the top. There's no twine because I ran out. If you have any white twine or black twine, you could definitely add some here behind your flower if you want. But I did decide to use the gems on this card. So I'm placing my flower in the corner, the gems that were in the kit. So these are the iridescent gems. And if you love these gems as much as I do, you can also purchase them from Stampin' Up. They have them on their website. I placed a large and a small near my flower, and then just a small one up near the greeting. And that one came together really quickly. And then for card number 4 is a really nice and simple card. So you're going to stamp your greeting near the bottom. And this is the one that uses the die cut. So we didn't have to cut this one out at all. It has that nice white border around it. And I'm going to do Enjoy Your Day. It's about an inch or so from the bottom. And you do want to place it near the left side. And then you'll take your flower, and again, there's no twine. If you want, you can add it, whatever you might have in your craft room. You can add some twine or some ribbon behind your flower before you add it to your card. So before I actually add the flower, I want to add this strip right down the center. So I'm going to place a little adhesive along the back. And so this is 2 3/4 inches and my strip is 2 inches. So I'm going to have about 3/8 of an inch showing with maybe about 1/8 of an inch on the top and bottom overlapping just slightly. You can see how it overlaps there. And I do have a little bit of this score line showing, and it's kind of bugging me a little bit. So I can do a couple things. I can distress it with my paper. Maybe that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to take a pair of paper snips and just distress that paper a little bit. Do that on the bottom as well. So you want to kind of match that look. Or I could have just cut it off if distressing isn't your thing. And then we can add our flower. And I placed it so that this opening kind of opens up to the greeting. Just like that. And then I did use the rhinestones for this. I placed a large one and a small one by my greeting. And another large one near the top. Okay, and that one's now ready for our card. To make these card bases, I wanted them to be similar and really easy to do. So you could use any coordinating cardstock. You could even use white cardstock if you'd like. So for my shaded spruce and my granny apple green, you're going to want to make these together at the same time. So you'll take a bone folder, fold them both in half. Okay. I'm just going to place them up a little high so you can see what I'm doing here in the screen. And I'm going to use the shaded spruce ink spot. So because I've got a darker color and a lighter color, I'm going to do the same stamp on both. So I'm going to start by inking it, then I'm going to stamp on shaded spruce, and then I'm going to stamp on my granny apple green. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get that generational stamping. So this one's going to be darker, and then the next stamp is going to be lighter. So that's why we want to do both at the same time. We do want to kind of keep the image close to the edge of the card. So maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so away from that edge. And you can rotate it so that you get, a different look, and it's not the exact same image all the way down your card. Let's go a long way. They don't need to sit right next to each other either. You can have gaps. We're just kind of creating a fun pattern along the edge here. If there's overlapping, that's okay too. Let's flip this one over. And then one last one right in the center between those two. I'm going to flip it. Okay, so you can leave the center unstamped because we're going to be covering that up with our focal points. And you can see how stamping with that generational stamping is really benefiting you when you have a dark and a light. So we're going to do that exact same thing now with our Petal Pink card base and our Calypso Coral card base. However, I don't want to use the green. So I'm going to switch out my ink to Calypso Coral. And you want to make sure that you also clean your stamp really well so you don't mix your colors. And then we're going to repeat that same process. So ink it up and stamp it down. So now we can go ahead and put the centers onto our card base. So I've added dimensionals to the back and just center it right in the middle. Super quick and easy. So there's card number 1. Here's card number 2. You can see that I added the dimensionals over the twine to hold it in place. And that one goes right in the center, just like the others. And you'll notice that the dots aren't even all the way around, and that is totally fine. That kind of gives you that nice organic look. Here is, let's see, that was our last one. Here's card number 3. I did forget to add this to my card base. So we're going to just add that to that basic white piece that came from the card base. There should be a little border all the way around since it's a little bit smaller. And then we'll add the dimensionals to the back. And place that on our Calypso Coral card base. Try to get it centered. That was quite off just a little bit. Sometimes if you can lift it up gently, you can fix it just a little bit. There we go. And then our last one is on the shaded spruce. And that again is centered. Make sure that your card is opening on the right side before placing it onto your card base. So those are the 4 cards that you can make quick and easy from the supplies from one of the card bases from the kit. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see written instructions or close-up images on creating these cards, you can visit my blog, creativechelsey.com. If you would like more information about Paper Pumpkin and how to subscribe, you can do so using the link in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.